I'm Doug from Global West. Thought I'd take a minute to talk about coil springs on GM applications. And this is pretty much through 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. This particular coil spring we have here is pretty common with all those applications. And what I want to talk about is trimming coil springs. A lot of springs are out there. A lot of guys are trying to find something specific in ride height, and they either end up too high or some cases too low, and we have parts to help that, and we'll get into that in another video. But in this particular one, we're going to talk about trimming springs if you actually have to. Now, it's not that we're a big fan of trimming springs, but sometimes you got to do it to set your ride height. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this for a second. Now, in springs, a lot of people also ask me, what's the top and what's the bottom of a coil spring? Well, if it's a flat ground like this, that's going to be the top. Let's say it wasn't a flat ground. Let's say it was a full wire open, like how this looks right here. Well, what you want to do is look at the spring spacing here and here, okay, on your spring. The tight wind, you see how tight it is right through here versus here? This is going to be the top, okay? Tight wind to the top. So now we're going to talk about trimming springs. Now, you don't want to use a torch. You know, if you're going to do any trimming at all, you're going to do an abrasive wheel. You're going to keep the heat out of the springs. Use an abrasive wheel, even a bandsaw will cut these springs. And there's a formula on how much you need to trim in order to set your ride height. A lot of guys just go and say, well, I'll just take a half a coil off or a full coil off. Well, that's how you get in trouble, and that's how we end up selling a lot of coil spring spacers to bring the car back up because you went too far. So what I'm going to do is give you a real quick formula on how to make this work first time out of the box, and you're done, okay? So let's say I put this in my Chevelle, and when everybody measures their ride height, they like to measure it right at the fender well to ground for the tire, okay? Because that's what everybody's looking at. And let's say it's 2 inches higher than you want it to be. Okay, so how much do I really need to cut off? So what you're going to do is you're going to take and measure the free length. The free length is from the top of the table here to the very top of the spring. That's free length, okay? The overall length. And so you're going to measure this, right? Okay. And we're going to measure this, and this is 15¼ inches, okay? And you've had these on the car. Now you have to put them on the car first so you even know where the ride height is. So don't just buy a set of springs and cut them. Think, oh, I'm just going to drop it an inch. I'll just trim it now. Don't do that. You've got to have it on the car first to see where it settles. Make sure you roll the car the distance of the wheelbase, bounce it. You don't need to have the shocks or anything in. Just roll it, see where you're at, and then check it, okay? So right now we got 15¼ inches. I want to lower this car down 2 inches. So the way this works is 1 at the spring is 2 at the body. So I need to shorten the free length of this spring up by 1 inch to get a 2-inch drop. So I take my tape measure, and this was measuring 15¼ I now need to measure it at 14¼ That's actually my cut point. So I will actually walk my tape measure around, as you see, and I'll bring it over here to where it's 14¼ Now in this particular case, on this spring, it's going to be right here. It's almost 1 full coil off. If I trim this right here, I will have a 2-inch drop. Right now, I only do this once, okay? Let's say I want to lower it down only 1 inch, okay? So again, I got 15¼ Half of 1 inch is a 1/2 inch. I walk this around to 14¾ because that's a 1/2 inch less than 15¼ That's going to be my new cut point. So I'll bring this around. I got 15¼ over here. I'll walk it around to 14¾ which puts me right here. It's not a 1/2 coil. It's actually a little over 1/2 coil. So let's say you just decided to cut a 1/2 coil off. Do you throw it on the car? It's still too high. Got to take them off again. This way, done. That's your mark. Every spring is different. You measure the spring on its own. Don't don't have 3 separate springs and go, oh, I'm just going to do it on all these like this. You got to have it on the car, you check it. So if this wind was different, my amount that I cut off is going to be different, but the measurements are all the same, okay? 1 at the spring is 2 at the body. This works on GM applications. Doesn't work on everything, okay? 1 at the spring, 2 at the body. And this is pretty much it. We've done it for years, works every time. Should help you guys out, setting your ride height. It's nice to only have to do it once.